So let me get started and share with you those famous insights. John the Evangelist said that before God created the world, in the beginning was the Word. What he's saying is that it was the inherent power of words through which the world was created. This reminded me of the anecdote when linguist and dictionary maker Noah Webster, when his wife came home to find him kissing the maid, and she cried out loud and said, "Noah, I'm surprised." To which he said, as a good linguist would, "No, my dear, it is I who is surprised. You are astonished." I've always been fascinated by linguistics, political communication, psychology. So I tried to explore this area a little deeper. In the 21st century, something interesting happened. Words and language have become so accessible and so useful that ChatGPT was born, while our own words and the meaning we attach to them have become cheap and devalued. Word distortion, obfuscation, deception, spin, and gaslighting are everyday realities. George Orwell, in his book 1984, and in his pamphlet Politics and the English Language, described how societies and the public discourse are molded by words. But I've also understood and learned that it's not just the outside world that our words shape, but the words that we use effectively create our own inner reality. Words are magical tools through which we interpret and filter the outside world. But words are often misused, distorted, spun, and often abused. In 1984, the Ministry of Peace was effectively the Ministry for War, while today a special military operation is not a war. Lies can just be alternative facts, and since torture is banned, enhanced interrogation techniques are okay. Through words, we tap into our own personal and collective history, our biases, our emotions, and words also create feelings and shape our own inner dialogue. You might be wondering, what is then the purpose, the ultimate purpose of words? And every word that a person speaks and utters, consciously or unconsciously, reveal the speaker's true intentions. What do I mean by that? Words can sustain power. Manipulators who have their own best interest at heart will degrade, dismiss, and praise us so they can control others and benefit themselves. When a politician says, "Vote for me if you're a patriot," that is not persuasion, but well-disguised manipulation. Words are used to minimize. When my pain is strong, when I'm intensely embarrassed, when I'm extremely at unease, I'm going to use my linguistic toolkit to shrink it so I can cope. Dying becomes departing. And I'm not in debt, I just have negative cash flow. And that breakup wasn't a big deal because anyways we were just friends. Words are used to bend the truth. I'm not depressed, just under the weather. I wasn't fired, just downsized. Reality hurts. reality is painful. So I just want reality to go away so I can temporarily ease my pain. But reality always makes its timely return. So let's see, what is actually the goal with our words? Well, the goal is to accurately and honestly speak the truth and be real. And when I aim to speak the truth and be real, I'm wondering, do I want to describe what there is or imagine what there should be? Or as Aristotle said, is it the actuality or the potentiality? Is it a block of stone that I'm seeing or the potential of a beautiful sculpture? The actuality or the potentiality? Also, when I see, describe, and understand the world, I want to peel off the layers that distort and blur my vision. A friend used to mean someone who would remember your birthday even when you forget hers. But today, a friend is someone who shares a new conspiracy theory every day on her TikTok. The sudden death of a loved one is an emotional shock with long-lasting effects, a trauma. But failing your accounting 101 exam, unpleasant, but not a trauma. And I understand the desire to stretch a word to redefine its meaning. But stretching it so far and so much that it snaps is going to do a disservice to the original word, betraying it and devaluing it. What word can I use for an actual trauma if I need to? So you might be wondering, what is actually the right word? Well, the right word is definitely not one that describes the impossible, or the inflated, or the illusory, but a word that is real, that is accurate, that is truthful. Picture a scene. A man is talking to a woman in a room. It could be a podcast interview. It could be a hostage situation. It could be an escape room game. It could be the start of a romantic encounter. Well, whatever way I choose to interpret that and imagine that largely depends on my filters. Meaning my perspective, my fears, my biases, conscious or unconscious prejudice, or my hopes. So in short, my intentions. Intentions are often very hard to find. They may not be obvious right in front of us. And in political language, it's even more difficult. When a dictator says that he wants to liberate a country, what are his true intentions? For political language, we often need the lawyer's hat, meaning that we need to rely on circumstantial evidence or reasonable assumptions so we can peel back and try to find the true meaning behind those words. But when we manage to do that, something wonderful happens, because we refuse to accept what we are being told at face value, and we stop letting others to mislead us. Now, doing that to ourselves is even more challenging. When I want to discover behind my own words, my own intentions, which might be informed by fear, because I'm deeply afraid of something, or informed by some unpleasant event that I want to explain away, and I try to look behind and see and decode the filters that I have applied, then something magical happens. Because I no longer allow to be misled by those hidden agendas, agendas hidden in plain sight even from myself, through distortion or self-deception. So I can ultimately get to the core, harsh, and actual truth. A magic trick, once you know how it's done, will lose its power. And in this case, is a wonderful thing. Ultimately, where I hope to get, a place where I want to arrive to, is to find a word without distortion, without obfuscation, without deception, without spin, and without gaslighting. Finding this sort of defense, this sort of immunity, which is not induced by a vaccine, but something that you have discovered in yourself, a power that you may have never realized existed, is an amazing thing. But unfortunately, it's not enough. Because if you're aiming to create a better outer and inner world, you would like to find your true potential. You would like to create the potentiality of change. And that is not without dangers, because it has a lot of ethical and moral considerations. Because ultimately it comes down to the values that you hold and the values that others hold. And values are somewhat hidden forces that inform our intentions, influence our message, shape our techniques, and guide our words. Once all of this lines up, you do have the potentiality to imagine and find a word for a more honest world. Now, values are so important that when you realize what are yours, and then you find a gap between yours and the speakers behind their words, in case of such a gap, a red alert should go up. Because that's not right, that the person is so far away from where you would like them to be. But when you do realize that you yourself may be misnarrating reality in a way that your words and your own values are in a mismatch, in my case, I get very frustrated that I've fallen short again with my big, lofty ideals. But when I manage to reach that kind of integrity, and where my values, my intentions, my message, my techniques, and my words align, then I'm really proud to have presented that to you in a TEDx talk called "Your Words Will Shape Your World." Thank you.